I was approached by a Patreon supporter of ours if I'll do a video about DE Aztec. Well, I already made one, but it's pretty old by now, so why not revisit the map? Ever since it was removed from CSGO, it is even cut content, so it will fit nicely into this series. So welcome to a new episode of the cut content of CounterStrike, where we will explore what players of CSGO are missing today. And for that, let us start at the very beginning. Back in the early days, DE Aztec looked a bit different than CSGO players might remember. In the original Counter-Strike, everything used to be a bit more blocky, and it had a much more cleaner stone look. Almost nothing was overgrown and green. The first time we saw DE Aztec was in beta 6.5, where it was already remarkably close to the layout we ultimately got with 1.6 and subsequent versions. A lot of areas were a bit more compact, darker and less refined. The T-spawn was significantly different, and the entire map featured triggers that would send lightning strikes down from the skies. Something that gave this map a sense of danger and made it appear much more dynamic and lifelike compared to the often static levels at the time. The riverbanks were simply square blocks, and the ramp we know today was a set of stairs. One curious thing about the early versions of DE Aztec that you might notice are these strangely familiar textures. That is because some were reused from DE Dust, and to be honest, fewer stones and more gravel and sand fit very nicely in my opinion. With Beta 7 came a big change. One of the bomb sites was moved back into a completely new part of the map, accessible directly from the CT spawn via an underpass and an archway coming from the former bomb site. This new secluded bomb site provided ample cover with lots of pillars around. However, the vectors of approach were very limited, only giving 2 entrances, and the secluded location made sure that the CTs held the site with a firm grip most of the time. Needless to say, this new bomb site location was gone with the next version. While an interesting change indeed, I see why it wasn't successful. By the time the retail release of Counter-Strike came around, many things started to look familiar to modern players. The riverbanks were now smooth and renaturalized. The familiar ramp was in place and the T-spawn simplified. The textures taken from D-Dust were kept until the 1.6 version of DE Aztec though. From this point forward, the changes done to the map were mostly of a cosmetic nature, except for the bridge maybe. For the 1.6 release, the map got a big overhaul. A brand new set of textures, a lot more detailing, and even plants were added with models, a hallmark of Gearbox Software's Counter-Strike maps. The old camo netting bridge was replaced with a scratch-built one, lights were added, and the T-spawn remodeled once again with a dig site. Let me emphasize the changes at the bridge once more. The old bridge was almost impossible to see through, so it used to be a big hassle against bots especially, because they could see you without any problems at all. For the Xbox release of Counter-Strike, the map was remade again. With a fresh lick of paint, all textures were redone, and the terrain around the river was completely remodeled, almost mirroring the displacements you will find in the source versions of the map. If you have ever tried to build terrain in the old Half-Life engine, then you will appreciate this work. 2004's Counter-Strike Condition Zero came with a lower detailed version of DE Aztec Xbox Edition. Decals were gone, the top of these structures were altered, and the lamps in the river were gone. Apart from these cosmetic changes that came in the form of downgrades, everything stayed the same. Later the same year, Counter-Strike Source was released, and the Source version of course massively improved the visuals. But to be honest, the CSS version looks a bit too squeaky clean compared to the previous incarnations of Aztec, with exception of the few first ones maybe. During E3 2004, we got to see a Counter-Strike trailer that showed off DE Aztec in all its new engine glory, most notably of course, the new water and lighting. The Aztec map shown in the trailer has a few noteworthy differences compared to the release version. The most notable thing, apart from different textures on these boxes here and hanging plants, is the fact that the stairs were back, which were once again replaced in the release version, but this time with a smooth and nice displacement. One neat little detail I found curious about the CS Source remake of Aztec: these little generators here are the same as in the 1.6 version. they didn't get an overhaul at all. The next update of this map massively stepped up the visuals, coming 8 years later with CounterStrike Global Offensive. They greeted us in a trailer with a beautifully redesigned DE Aztec. Of course, this can't compete with more modern CSGO maps, but compared to all the other versions we saw so far, this really stands out. It combines the gritty look of the old Aztec versions with the clear and defined textures of Source, and of course adds sweet water reflections and ambient lighting. This new version of Aztec was the first official version in ages to introduce layout changes. The cover for approaching T's in the riverbed was greatly improved. And of course, most notably, the stairs were back once again. Okay, jokes aside, no, not the stairs. Most notably, of course, was the removal of the back route between the riverbed and the T-spawn. And then in addition to that, the new connector. This one being added after the map's release, and for some reason, Valve never bothered to update the radar. Then came dark times. Because in November of 2019, Valve suddenly removed DE Aztec. Reason being, this map was one of the lesser played ones. They said it will be back once it is redesigned. I'm really hoping they will do it in the end, because DE Aztec was always near and dear to my heart. I landed my first double kill headshots on this map, during a LAN party years ago. I still remember it. I came out of CT spawn with an M249, guns blazing, spraying the doors like a mad lad. And then, just in that moment, 2 Ts dropped dead, with big blood fountains staining doors and walls. Followed by 2 frustrated screams coming from my friend and his bigger brother in the room next door. Great times. So I'm really hoping that this old classic will make a comeback. But did you know that there's an official version of Aztec released in 2013? Well, regular viewers of this channel might know. Nexon released their own Aztec remake for CounterStrike Online 2. And considering the fact that this is based on an older version of Source than CSGO, I must say, hats off. It's very pretty, on a first glance at least. Once you take a closer look, you realize that a lot of the detailing is just 2D textures, detailing tricks that were used over 20 years ago in Half-Life 1. Nonetheless, it's okay, it looks fine. Sadly, the texture resolution is low and more could have been done, but you get the sense of what they were trying to do, and it does look kind of good. I just wanted to mention this version for the sake of completeness. If you want a more detailed look at it, I will link a video for that in the end card or in the description down below. And the gameplay you're seeing right here? No, that's not some strange mod or skin. That was a Browning automatic rifle as a regular weapon in CounterStrike Online 2. Yeah, the game was a bit special. At this point in the video, I would have loved to read you a few words from Narby, the original creator of Aztec. But unfortunately, he hasn't gotten back to me yet. I wanted to know 3 main things from him. Have you ever checked out newer remakes of your map? Counter-Strike Condition 0 to CSGO? And if so, which one is your favorite? After the map was removed from CSGO, Valve announced they will rework the map. Which changes would you like to see? Do you have suggestions for Valve? Years ago you worked on a sequel to Aztec. Why was the work halted? And yes, you heard right. There was a sequel in the works. Some time ago, 3Clicks Philip made a decent video about DE Aztec 2. And I would refer you to that for a closer look. But just let me say, the unofficial version that we have, and even the 3Clicks Philip CSGO port, is a pretty interesting project. It's a shame that the development was abandoned, for it was more than just a remake, it was something completely new, apart from the visual style of course, that was still distinctly Aztec, with a texture set from Condition 0. And this special style, generally the Aztec aesthetic, is something that I always enjoyed. It was something very different in playstyle and especially visual style. And now the ball is in your court. What do you think about DE Aztec? Do you miss it? What would you like to see changed in Valve's remake? Share your opinions in the comment section down below. I'll be happy to personally respond. And you know, considering the fact that DE Aztec was shown in the trailer for Counter-Strike Source and for Counter-Strike Global Offensive as well, it's a shame that this map is gone. Even if it's not the best competitive map, it definitely had its place in deathmatch and stuff. It's incredibly fun, and yeah, it's still popular on some community servers. Those places are are just great fun.
First blood!
The fuck just happened? And as it's customary here, in the end, a special thanks to all supporters on Patreon who of course got to see this video first. To them and everyone else, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing for more content. So, hopefully, see you guys next time. Until then, have a nice day, and as always, goodbye and guten Tag.
Bye.